He sat in silence, staring at the empty chair across the table, the chair that once held the woman who loved him beyond measure. His hands trembled, not from age but from memories. He thought passion was love, but tonight, regret wrapped around him tighter than any embrace ever did. You're watching Unseen Romance, where love meets truth, and every story carries a heartbeat. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your presence means everything in our journey. His name was Daniel. To the world, he was successful, a man with status, charm, and a home that whispered luxury. But behind the polished glass walls of his life, Daniel carried a hollow space within him. At home waited Clara, his wife, his anchor. Clara was not dazzling in the way Elena would later be, but she was the quiet kind of beautiful, the one who made coffee taste sweeter simply by sitting across the table. Her laughter carried warmth, the kind that turned walls into homes. Yet Daniel, he was restless. He would look at Clara and admire her, but somewhere inside him lived a dangerous thought. Is this enough? He loved her, yes, but familiarity had dulled the fire. In the mirror, he saw a man trapped between comfort and craving. And then came Elena. She wasn't a woman who simply walked into a room. She arrived, with eyes that promised storms and lips that spoke in temptations. She was a mystery that Daniel wanted to solve, a flame he longed to touch even if it burned him alive. It began with conversations. Small at first, harmless, or so he told himself. A smile across a crowded event. A lingering glance that lasted too long. Then the conversations grew into stolen meetings, late-night calls, and words whispered in shadows. Daniel told himself it was love. That Elena understood the part of him Clara never reached. She was freedom, rebellion, danger, all the things his marriage had muted. But in the quiet hours, when Clara slept beside him, Daniel sometimes wondered why her presence didn't soothe him anymore. She would turn in her sleep, reaching for him with unconscious tenderness, while his heart wandered elsewhere. The man who once vowed eternal loyalty found himself standing at a crossroad, pulled by comfort on one side and desire on the other. He thought he had chosen love, but in truth he was choosing regret, though he didn't yet know it. Elena was everything Daniel thought he had been missing. She was bold where Clara was gentle, unpredictable where Clara was steady. She spoke with the kind of confidence that made Daniel feel alive, like he had stepped into a world he had only dreamed of. Their meetings turned into escapes. An afternoon business lunch stretched into evenings filled with laughter, wine, and the thrill of secrecy. Daniel convinced himself it was harmless, that love could exist in two places, that hearts were large enough to hold two truths. But love is never divided. It is either whole or it is broken, Clara began to notice. The way Daniel came home later than before. The way his smile no longer reached his eyes. The way his arms wrapped around her, but his soul lingered elsewhere. She asked nothing. She simply watched him with quiet sorrow, as if waiting for him to choose her again. Meanwhile, Elena fed Daniel's hunger for passion. She told him he deserved more, that Clara's love was too ordinary for a man like him. And Daniel, blinded by his own desire, believed her. Nights that once belonged to Clara's warmth now belonged to Elena's whispers. Every message on his phone made his heart race. Every lie he told Clara carved a deeper crack into the foundation of their marriage. Daniel thought he had found love. But it wasn't love. It was intoxication, a fire that demanded more fuel with every passing day. And though he couldn't see it yet, the very fire that lit his nights was the same one preparing to burn his world to ash. The illusion of perfection never lasts. Elena, once a fantasy, began to reveal another side. Her passion turned to possession. Her charm shifted into demands. She wanted all of Daniel, not just the fragments he offered in secrecy. "Leave her," she whispered one night, her voice sharp despite the softness of her lips. "If you love me, you'll leave Clara." Daniel froze. The thought of losing Clara's quiet devotion terrified him. He didn't want to admit it, but deep down he knew Clara's love was the anchor that kept him from drifting too far. At home, Clara's silence grew heavier. She never accused, never fought. But her eyes told stories of broken trust and unspoken pain. One evening, as Daniel walked in, she simply looked at him and said, "I hope she's worth what you're losing." Those words struck him harder than any anger could. For the first time, Daniel realized what was slipping through his fingers. His work began to suffer. Deals he once closed effortlessly started to crumble. Friends whispered about his change. Clara withdrew, her love turning into a distant kindness, as if she was preparing herself for life without him. And yet, Daniel kept chasing Elena. Every kiss, every embrace felt more desperate than the last, as if he was trying to prove to himself that he hadn't made the wrong choice. But in his heart, doubt had begun to bloom. And doubt, once planted, grows faster than love ever could. It happened slowly. Then all at once, Elena, the woman Daniel believed was his salvation, began to pull away. Her laughter no longer lit the room. Her words cut sharper with every conversation. What once felt like freedom now felt like a cage. And then the betrayal. Not of the body, but of trust. One evening, in the middle of a heated argument, Elena revealed secrets Daniel had whispered to her in his most vulnerable moments. She threatened to expose him, his lies, his infidelity, his weakness, to the very people who respected him most. The man who had once thought himself untouchable suddenly felt the ground crack beneath his feet. When word spread, through whispers, through looks, through the unkind silence of those who once admired him, Daniel realized the truth. The woman he thought was love had become the author of his ruin. At home, Clara's heart had already broken long before the world knew. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She simply packed her silence into a suitcase and left with dignity that words could never shatter. Daniel stood in the doorway as she walked away, her figure fading into the distance. He wanted to call her name. He wanted to beg her to stay. But guilt pressed against his throat, turning every word into ash. In a single night, he lost both women, one to betrayal and the other to heartbreak. And for the first time, Daniel understood. Love isn't measured in passion. It is measured in loyalty, but it was too late. The nights grew longer. The apartment, once filled with stolen laughter and Clara's gentle presence, now echoed with emptiness. Daniel sat alone, staring at the empty chair across the table, the same chair Clara once filled. Her smile haunted him in every shadow. Her voice lingered in every silence. He called Elena, no answer. He tried to return to her world of chaos, but the door had closed. She had taken what she wanted, and now she was gone. And Clara? She didn't look back. Regret consumed him like fire. Every lie replayed in his mind. Every kiss with Elena tasted bitter now. Every memory of Clara's kindness stabbed deeper than betrayal ever could. He remembered the mornings when Clara placed his coffee gently on the table, her hands brushing his, her eyes full of unspoken love. He remembered the evenings when she sat by him in silence, not needing words to fill the space. And now, he remembered them only as ghosts. Daniel had traded devotion for desire, and in the end, he lost both. He thought passion was love, but regret became his reality. In the quiet of his empty home, Daniel finally understood. You can rebuild wealth. You can regain status, but you cannot buy back trust. You cannot beg back the love you once shattered. And so, night after night, he sat with the only companion he had left. Regret. Time passed, but regret never loosened its grip on Daniel. He learned to wear a mask in public, smiling through business meetings, shaking hands as though nothing had changed. But behind closed doors, the silence of his home was unbearable. One day, years later, fate crossed his path with Clara's once more. She was sitting at a cafe by the window, sunlight spilling across her face. She wasn't alone. Her laughter now belonged to new friends, perhaps even a new life. She looked radiant, untouched by the storms of their past. Daniel froze at the sight. His heart ached with 1,000 unsaid apologies. He wanted to run to her, to tell her that he had been wrong, that she was always the love he was searching for. But he didn't move. Clara's eyes lifted for a moment, catching his across the room. There was no anger in them, no bitterness, only a calmness, a forgiveness that didn't need words. She gave him a small, gentle smile, the kind that said, "I've healed. I've moved on, and so should you." And in that fleeting moment, Daniel felt both pain and peace. He realized he could never return to what was lost, but perhaps forgiveness was its own kind of love. That night, Daniel sat down with pen and paper. For the first time in years, he wrote, not for business, not for lies, but from his heart. He wrote Clara a letter. He didn't ask her to return. He didn't beg for another chance. He simply said, "I was wrong. You were my true love, and I lost you. Thank you for everything. I hope your life is filled with the happiness I could not give you." And when he sealed the letter, tears slipped down his face, not of sorrow, but of release. For regret would always remain, but now it was softened by truth. He thought passion was love, but only now, in the quiet closure of his story, did he finally understand what love had been all along. Love is fragile, choices are powerful, and regret is the shadow that never leaves. This was Daniel's story, his confession, his downfall, his truth. If this touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Unseen Romance, where we bring you more untold stories of love, heartbreak, and the human soul. And remember, our next story holds a secret, one that may change the way you see love forever. Until then, hold on to what matters most, because once it's gone, no amount of regret can bring it back.